You're listening to Dispatch Radio, sponsored by theglobaldispatch.com.
Welcome back to Dispatch Radio. We are going to go to our Lyme disease expert. Her name is Constance Dickey. She's in Maine. She's going to catch us up on some of the legislation. Are you there, ma'am?
I am.
Well,
Hi,
welcome.
Robert.
Welcome to Dispatch Radio. This is Brandon. I'm going to turn you over to Bob. He's going to go through the interview. It's great to have you with us.
Thanks.
Hi, Happy. Just a little introduction. Happy is a registered nurse, and she is the president of MaineLyme.org. That's a Lyme disease advocacy website. And welcome to the show, Happy.
Thank you for having me, Robert.
Great. All right. The first thing I'd like to ask you about, well, up in Maine, Governor LePage recently just signed a bill into law, LD 597. And one of the provisions I was curious about was it requires the Maine Centers for Disease Control, basically their state health department, to provide information about different alternatives for the treatment of Lyme disease. Prior to this law, only the treatment guidelines from the Infectious Diseases Society of America, the IDSA, were presented on the site. And Happy, I'm looking at the IDSA site right now, and it's talking about, Lyme disease is a bacterial infection. It's talking about treatment with doxycycline, amoxicillin, cefuroxime acetyl. And I guess I have a two-part question. What's the importance of this provision to you and other advocates? And when you say different alternatives for the treatment of Lyme, what does that entail?
Two good questions, Robert. The importance, I think, is that many patients are finding that they're not recovering fully when treated with the IDSA guidelines. Certainly if you get people early and, treat them well and aggressively if they have a rash or they identify the tick bite, there's often not much of a problem. But if people don't see a rash, don't know they have a tick bite, go a long time, meaning months or years before they become diagnosed, then treatment options become difficult and complicated. And when people don't get well with the IDSA guidelines, they often find that the guidelines of the International Lyme and Associated Diseases Society work better for them. And we were asking the Maine CDC to let people know that there is a divide in the medical community, that there are two standards of care, and that the patient should be able to confer with their physician and choose the standard that works for them.
Okay. Well, Happy, can you describe what some of the different alternatives are?
Well, the alternative wording is a little bit of a kind of a not the best word to use in this instance. I think treatment options would have been better, because we weren't talking about alternative treatments such as, rife or any of the other kind of alternative modalities that some people like to use. We really were talking about the difference in between ILADS and the IDSA.
I see. I also noticed on your Facebook page, the MaineLyme.org Facebook page, you talk about another provision in the law, and I quote, "Now doctors will have to give patients a copy of their own Lyme lab test that state that a negative test does not mean you don't have Lyme disease." Can you clarify that for our audience?
Sure. That actually was not part of our original bill. That was a bill that was recently passed in Virginia. They were the first in the state to say that physicians must tell their patients a negative test does not mean that they don't have Lyme disease. The test is not a very good test, and at best it's about 56% accurate when you look at all the research studies that have been done on Western blots and the two-tier testing for Lyme disease. So there are a lot of things that can affect the results of the test, such as the timing of the test from when you got your tick bite, if you've had any antibiotics, if you've had any steroids, those kinds of things. So it's kind of a complicated thing, and having a negative test doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme. So you need more of a workup. So Virginia passed this bill so that patients would continue to search for answers if they were ill and knew that they might have a tick-borne disease illness. Our initial bill was asking that ILADs be put on the CDC website as a another treatment option, and the Virginia bill got thrown in by Representative Sanderson on the Health and Human Services Committee, much to our surprise. So, as an addition to what we were asking for, they wanted physicians to tell patients that a negative test doesn't mean that they don't have Lyme. The physicians, the Maine Medical Association, physician senators fought hard and strong against that language, and we ended up with giving the patient a copy of their lab results, because the lab states on the lab results that a negative test doesn't mean that you don't have Lyme disease.
Okay, that clears.
So it's kind of a long way to get to the same place.
Yeah, that definitely clears that up. My co-host Brandon has a question for you, Happy.
Yeah.
Do you know, are they keeping these results? Do we have like a database that they're keeping and keeping track of who's got what?
They do. As bad as the tests are, the ones that come back positive are tracked in Maine. In Maine, we have mandatory lab reporting. We also have mandatory physician reporting, but there's no penalty if the physician doesn't report, and that's certainly not on his first, his first line of agenda for the day. So we have mandatory lab reporting. If you have a test sent anywhere in the country, that lab has to report back to the state if it's positive, and the CDC follows up through physicians and patients to determine if that actually is a true positive, and those cases are then counted.
Okay, Happy. I noticed over the years that there's a lot of a disagreement between the establishment medical community and patients and advocates of Lyme disease.
Right.
Is chronic Lyme one of those issues?
Chronic Lyme is the issue. There's very little disagreement about early Lyme, other than the IDSA recommends treatment with one dose of doxycycline, which is controversial amongst the two groups. Mm-hmm. But other than that, early Lyme is pretty well agreed upon. Okay. Chronic Lyme and what continues to make people ill after what is considered standard or adequate treatment by the IDSA is the controversy. And according to the IDSA folks, there is no longer continued infection. We really haven't proven that. We haven't proven what it is and what it isn't. We know that the longer we treat people, and if we treat patients efficaciously and effectively, they tend to get better. According to the ILADS guidelines, when physicians don't use cookbook medicine, they tend to base their treatment on how the patient's response. And always in medicine, using critical thinking and treating the patient as and according to how it responds is a good thing. So I don't know why it's not considered a good thing in Lyme, but it isn't at times.
Okay. We got about 2 minutes left, Happy. I understand that Representative Cheryl Briggs was the originator of this bill.
She was.
Now, was there things in the original bill that you wanted to see passed that didn't make it?
There were. It was Representative Cheryl Briggs and Senator John Patrick, along with two women from their district, who originated this bill. It didn't come from Maine Lyme originally. And they wanted patients to have the right to know that there were two standards of care. That was what they based the bill on. The language was kind of then developed by the legislative writers. But it basically was to get the ILADS information on the website.
Okay. And I'll just go ahead and close this interview with, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your organization, MaineLyme.org, and the work that you do.
Thanks. MaineLyme.org is a nonprofit, and we started up about 3 years ago with 6 women here in Maine who all were from all parts of the states and had all different but similar stories about Lyme disease, and all who felt passionate about getting the word out. Certainly our goal is to prevent new cases of Lyme disease, because anything beyond that is much more difficult and much more complicated. So we spend a lot of time doing public talks. We call them TikToks. We have an MD medical director who does most of the talks. We do school presentations, we do public library presentations, we do grand rounds for physicians, and we attend all kinds of different kind of fairs and fundraisers and different things like that to get the word out.
Oh, very good. Good luck with your work there.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Constance Dickey. She's a registered nurse and the president of MaineLyme.org for joining us on Dispatch Radio and giving us this information. Thank you, Happy.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
I tell you what, I know that this can sound like, a bunch of tech talk, hard to follow, but we have a huge Lyme disease problem here in Florida. It just comes in spurts when people are out hunting and doing their thing, right? I mean,
oh, yeah, sure. And, for the longest time, even to this day, that, a lot of the federal health officials, CDC officials and all that, barely acknowledge Lyme disease in the southern United States. So, yeah, I'm starting to understand more what these advocacy groups are up against, and hopefully they can get things hashed out.
Well, I tell you what, you do a great job with our health stuff. I don't always even understand what Bob's talking about, for those of you that are listening at home. However, he does some really good stuff. There's a great one right now about eye safety for the summertime. That was a pretty cool one that I actually liked checking that out for myself. And we talk about the studies, the CDC, and all of that. I want to squeeze in a little story real quick. We have a backpedal, a health alert, if you will, when it comes to salt. Is that the best way to describe the new data?
Eggs, salt, pick your poison.
Oh, well, that's kind of what they were saying right about salt. Too much salt, you got a problem. But now the CDC has backpedaled. We have a new report that says there's no benefit from reducing your salt. In fact, if you reduce it too much and you're on a no salt diet, you actually can develop more problems. So the news story from the CDC, if you go to theglobaldispatch.com, you'll find it there, that the lead researcher, Dr. Niels Groddel, he's from Copenhagen University in Denmark, put this out, and I'm sure that we'll now see 6 other researchers that will rally around about how we need to reduce salt, but it just goes to show there's a lot of conflicting data and research and things like that, and we should never have knee-jerk reactions to any of these decisions in our personal lives. I agree. All right, well, let's we're going to take a little quick breather. We're going to come right back to the program. We'll have Mike Smith joining us. We'll get into some pop culture, some movie news, and have some fun closing out the show.
Youth mentorship program in the greater Tampa Bay area. Mission Flight United is a non-profit organization which reaches out to kids, especially teens, who love aviation and want to fly. Whether they have an interest in helicopters, fixed-wing airplanes, or aviation mechanics, Mission Flight United offers education, flight simulation, and great life application skills to help in all of these areas. For more information on their weekly classes or to make a tax-deductible donation, contact the instructor Dana Walker at 207-233-0669. With every $50 donation, you get a 1-hour demonstration and can schedule a flight with Dana to see for yourself what Mission Flight United has to offer. Again, call Dana at 207-233-0669 or simply Google Mission Flight United.